Hi friends.
Hello.
Welcome to Wednesdays with Whitney. Today I am here with Vanessa McNeal, who is the Executive Director of Story Maven Media, and she is here today to talk to us about fundraising for her new project, Little Ones. But first, I'm going to have her just introduce yourself in general.
Yep.
Tell us what you do in the world, what you've already created in the world, and then where we're headed.
So I'm a filmmaker, a national speaker, social activist, and I am the director of Gridshock, the documentary that you all supported and watched about sex trafficking in Iowa. So I am so passionate about talking about sexual violence as a survivor myself and talking about just really, really hard topics, but they're happening, but we just need to talk about them.
Yeah, you are the first person that I think of in my world when I think of someone who's willing to talk about the stuff that nobody else wants to talk about. And even today we're here to talk about Little Ones, which is going to be a documentary about child pornography. And I mean, when we just started kind of the background conversation for this, I was like, I'm having a hard time talking about this.
Right.
And I'm someone who likes to talk about hard things, and this is not a pleasurable topic to talk about. So I really want to commend you for starting the conversation and want to give you a little space to dive into us and tell us about this problem. How does this exist? What does it look like? What does child pornography mean?
Yeah.
So tell us.
So the federal definition of child pornography is any visual depiction involving a minor, and when I say minor, I mean infancy onward to under the age of 18, sexually explicit conduct. So that could be videos, pictures, computer-generated images that are indistinguishable from a child. And I think, obviously it's like hard for us to think about this and to comprehend it, but what I really want people to understand is that this is happening so frequently. We talked a little bit before the video started that in 2003 there was a study that showed that there are 450,000 images online of this content, and in 2018, 15 years later, there's 45 million images. So as excruciating as it is to think about, especially for those that have kids or love children, we have to talk about it because it's happening.
It's exponential, and it's easily accessible, it's easily created, and it's easily shared.
Yep.
So the internet has made our lives infinitely better in so many ways and infinitely more scary.
Yeah, absolutely.
In so many ways.
Right.
And who are the creators most often of this content?
Yeah, so this is a form of childhood sexual abuse, and just like any other forms of sexual abuse, the main perpetrators are people that are in close proximity to children. So there's a study that shows that I believe it's 25% of the producers of child pornography are family members or like neighbors or close family friends of children. Obviously it's really hard to digest, but if you think about any other form of physical or sexual abuse, it's people that have close proximity to children, other people that know children, like coaches or school teachers.
People with access and trust, and the ability to create a norm.
Right.
And I think that that's something, I'm finding it hard to find my words. I think that that's something that I've seen in a lot of the topics that you talk about as far as sexual abuse and child pornography. It's that people who are creating this content or creating these scenarios are people in positions to build trust.
Right, absolutely.
And build a norm within a child so that something starts maybe when they're 2 or 3, and by the time they're teenagers, they don't know the difference.
Right.
Like, this is reality. This isn't good or bad. This is just what they're living.
Right.
And how do you know to stand up for yourself when you don't know good or bad?
Right.
So with this documentary, what are you looking to uncover for us? What are you looking to show us?
I think it's important to socialize people to the topic because I think, again, we don't want to talk about it. We don't really understand what it is, but we are really interested in learning about the users of child pornography, so consumers or producers, particularly consumers. Like, what is the psychology behind that? Why are they doing that? Who are they? How do they access this material? And we're really interested in learning about if they can be rehabilitated, because I think it's easy for us to be like, oh, those people, like, they're horribly disgusting, we should put them off into an island, which I don't disagree with in some cases, but I think if we understand the fact that they're being reintegrated back into society all the time, we have to figure out as a society like how we work with these people. And so we're really interested in learning that and how we basically cope with this population of people.
Yeah. Well, and I think about that with any population of people who I'm very interested in this idea of shame and what that looks like when we don't acknowledge our shadow sides, our shadow desires. We all have parts of ourselves that we find to be unideal. Whether it's a popular opinion or not, there are pieces of I know there are pieces of me that I find to be unideal. Therefore, I could choose not to share them, and then they grow into something else. Now, child pornography and creating that is a very extreme example of that.
Right.
But what are the possibilities and like uncover, like there's got to be root causes and the need to create and the need to like manipulate people in this way. Right.
Absolutely. And we're interested in digging closer into a study that was done actually here in Iowa with sex offenders. Long story short, without getting into all of it, they basically a researcher found that child pornography consumers are among the top physical I'm like struggling with words today. Child pornography consumers had the most in-person offenses with children. So they're not just people on the internet watching this and consuming it. The study found that a lot of them are going out into the real world and abusing children in real life.
So this is a crossover issue.
Yes.
So this isn't isolated. This isn't, not to say that it's not people sitting at home consuming.
Right. But there are levels to it.
Yeah, but they're also consuming, perpetrating, possibly finding that out in the world, and that's even more scary. So when we talk about there's several issues at play, right? There's the people creating the content, and this may be a huge assumption, so check me, but I'm assuming if they're creating content on some level, they have to want to see that content.
Some of them do.
Okay, or some people are just
some
like
people
for
it's
the
like
money.
an economic.
I don't know why I think that's even more cool. Okay. Processing that reaction.
There's an economic draw because people are willing to pay a lot of money for this content. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and the U.S. is is the top producer and consumer of child pornography. So it's not just like those people over there. It's like we have an issue here. Yeah. And I wanted to quickly the research study that I talked about. There are 34 offenders in this study. And they self-reported that they offended against 148 real-life victims in real life. And so in terms of the potential number of sex crime incidents that happened, the maximum number, after the researcher did the math, the maximum number was about 830,000 sex crime events between 34 people. So again, the most prolific offenders were the ones that were consumers of child pornography, not just online, but there's an enormous impact that there's a high number of people that are in the community that are being offended against.
And I think about the conversations that we are having all of the time right now about what we are seeing, what we're consuming, and how that's normalizing us. Yeah. So we are getting normalized to content, and my favorite book in the whole world is Shonda Rhimes' Year of Yes. I listen to it every night before I go to bed because that's who I am. And one of the things she says in this book is that she was getting all these awards because she was showing diversity on the screen. And she was like, I'm not showing diversity. I am normalizing television. I am showing you what the world looks like. The world has black people, white people, Asian people, gay people, trans people. I am simply normalizing what you take in. Right. So there's positive ways to see this. Yes, we're seeing there's content out there now that's showing us the diverse world that we live in as it is, as it should be. Right. But then the shadow side of having so much access to this content is that we're also seeing stuff that like it's normalizing this behavior too. Right. And I mean, that's just a huge conversation. What are we normalizing? And what are we watching? And what is our responsibility as people consuming?
Right. Well, and I think with this topic, I think a lot about how, like, people all the time are like, oh, this is so sad. But then they, like, go on to, like, eat their Panera and, like, live their life. And they don't, like, give it second thought.
Yeah.
But I believe that every single one of us has a power to impact this with what we're consuming, with the conversations that we're creating about difficult topics. And then supporting organizations or causes that are trying to stop this from happening.
Absolutely. So let's dive into the campaign itself.
Yeah.
So you're doing Indiegogo campaign.
Indiegogo
correct?
campaign.
And what does that mean in and of itself?
So Indiegogo is a crowdfunding platform very similar to GoFundMe, except you can offer people really awesome perks, is what they call them. So, like, if you donate $55, you get a Little Ones t-shirt up to being a producer on the film. But they give you 60 days to raise your funds, and if you don't raise all of your funds within the deadline of the 60 days, then all of your donors get refunded. It's called an all or nothing campaign, and that's what we've opted for.
Yeah.
So it's very risky to do, but I believe that if we can't make the film with the resources that we need, then we don't want to make it at all.
Yeah.
This topic deserves better. The children that go through this deserve better, and we want to do it the right way.
Well, and I think I love the all or nothing mentality.
Yeah.
Because it forces the creators, you guys, that are saying, I want to talk about this, to go all in.
Yeah.
And it forces the audience to say, are we all in?
Right.
Are we all in on talking about this?
Yeah.
And really forcing the decision.
Right.
Because if it's just I'll donate whatever, it leaves that back door open for people to be like, maybe later. Maybe I'll care later.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll care next year.
Yeah.
But I love the all or nothing campaign because it's like, no, decide now, do you care?
Right.
Like, get it done. And you get to say a yes or a no to yourself.
Right.
So I think that it's very interesting that this campaign has been a slower start in fundraising than Gridshock was. Do you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah.
Okay.
So let me double check. I believe we have 43 days left.
Still a powerful amount of time.
44 days left. We've raised about 6,000, about 5,800. We have a goal of 50,000 to raise. So we have an enormous amount of money to make before a deadline. And if we're comparing it to Gridshock, we were way further ahead. I think more people were talking about the campaign and the issue itself. So I'm very optimistic because I know that this community has really supported me, and we have a lot of events and things coming up. But I just, it is really interesting that this topic has been enormously difficult to talk about for other people.
Yeah. I mean, and Gridshock was about sex trafficking. It's not like we were talking about something easy. But, I mean, quite the opposite. True. But I did find more of an identification with the subject.
Yep.
Like, I could see myself in that scenario.
Yep.
Whereas this, not only can I not see myself in it, I can barely get to the point of thinking about it.
Right.
Let alone, like, in wanting to engage in it.
Right.
But I think that's the whole point.
It is the point.
That is the whole point of, like, first of all, it's the whole point of an all or nothing campaign.
Yeah.
It's the whole point of having the documentary in the first place and saying, we don't want to talk about this, but this use in 15 years, it went from, I can't say the statistic, but from
450,000 to 45 million.
Okay, if somebody out there does math, that's an exponential increase. So we have an issue to talk about. You're here to talk about it. And how can people support you?
So our Indiegogo link will be posted in the comment section of this video. Again, we are 44 days left to raise about $45,000. There are opportunities to be business sponsors, producers on the film. If you don't care about any of that, there's a way to just donate. Every little bit helps. Yeah. I remember when we were doing Gridshock, I would just see $25, $25, and we were able to make that goal, which was $35,000. So we have a little larger goal to make. And I urge people not to wait until the last minute. I think people get invested when they see that there are already people invested.
Yeah.
And
I think that idea that $25 helps. I think so many times we stop ourselves because we're like, well, we can't give $5,000.
Yeah.
No, but if every single person watching right now, my Facebook lives usually end up with around 500 views. What if 500 people donated $25? Again, I don't do math, but I think that's a decent amount of money.
It's a decent amount, yeah.
I think it could make a dent. So think about that. And if you can give, if it's in your heart, if it's something that speaks to you, and you want to see this topic brought to light and make a dent in making an impact. Like, we don't know what the solution is.
Right.
But there can't be a solution unless we start talking about it.
Absolutely. And I would love for everyone to help. If we don't make our goal, not only will it be a disappointment and a letdown for us, but I think it will be for the community too, because that meant that we weren't ready to talk about it and do something about it. Yeah. So I would love everyone to donate. And as a soon-to-be mom myself, this is a subject that I've really poured my heart into, and I won't stop until the last day.
Yep.
So expect me to be talking about this, or if there are groups or people that I should talk to, or people in the community that you think that I should be introduced to, please let me know too. I will be pounding the pavement. So.
I love it. Vanessa, thank you always for showing up, giving of yourself, and talking about the things that are hard. I really appreciate that about you.
Thank you.
So, all right. Bye, guys.
Bye,
See you next
everyone.
week.